Okay, it's 9:30 in the UK, according to my clock, so we will get started with our webinar today. My name is Christina Silva, and I manage the CAQDAS networking project, which is based in the Department of Sociology at the University of Surrey. And there's lots of information on our website about all of the awareness-raising activities and training workshops and other activities we engage in order to discuss and help people, researchers, students, teachers get the most out of digital tools for qualitative and mixed methods analysis. Today is our final webinar this academic year. It's the 31st webinar since we started this program back in September 2020. And I'm very delighted to have Professor Philipp Mayring with us today. I will introduce him to you very shortly. Before I do that, just to let you know that this webinar series has been a great success, and we are going to be continuing it next from September. We have a couple of webinars already planned for September. They're not yet ready to register, but you may like to save the dates. The first one will be on the 9th with myself, and I'll be talking about thematic analysis using CAQDAS packages. And then later on in September, Dr. Kate Miller will be talking about her use of the software Delve for a case study looking at teachers and what they know. So that's just a couple we've got already planned. If you have any ideas for webinars or would like to run one yourself, then do get in touch with us. We're always very keen to hear from you, users, teachers, students, methodologists, and we do our best to provide events that are useful for you. We've also got a range of new workshops coming up next academic year, so do follow us on social media to be updated about those when we have those all scheduled for you. Okay, enough about that. Let's get going with the main events today. And I'm absolutely delighted to introduce you to Professor Philipp Mayring today. Many of you, I am absolutely sure, will know of his work very well. And we are very honoured to have you here today. And thank you very much for taking time out from your retirement to be with us and speak to us from your home in Austria about qualitative content analysis and the free software package that he was integral in developing and continues to support, QCAmap. Professor Mayring was Professor for Psychological Methods in the University of Klagenfurt in Austria. And in a long and very illustrious career, amongst other things, he is famous for developing and writing about techniques of qualitative content analysis, which was a key focus for him over the past 40 years at several universities, including Munich, Augsburg and Ludwigsburg in Germany, and as I mentioned before, the University of Klagenfurt in Austria. He's also held guest professorships in Vienna and Freiburg in Switzerland, and was president of the German Association for Evaluation. Two of his key publications on this topic are Qualitative Content Analysis, a step-by-step guide. You can see there that book on the slide, which was published by Sage. And also Mixed Methodology in Psychological Research, published by Sense in 2007. And I'll post links to both of those publications once Professor Mayring starts his talk. I'll post those links in the chat for you so you can access them easily. As well as his methodological interests, which he'll be speaking to us about today, Professor Mayring also has substantive interests in health psychology, gerontology, emotions and well-being, and educational psychology. He founded the Association for Supporting Qualitative Research, and this is where the CAQDAS package QCAmap continues to be maintained today. I'm sure you're all as excited as I am about today's webinar to hear about qualitative content analysis from one of its leading proponents, and to learn about the software designed specifically to undertake it is something that really is a great opportunity for us all. But before I pass the floor over to Professor Mayring, please, those of you attending today, please feel free to post your comments and questions in the chat at any time. I will collate those and I will facilitate a discussion at the end. Professor Mayring will speak for about 45-50 minutes, so there'll be plenty of time at the end for discussion later on. So once again, welcome, and thank you very much for being here. I'll pass the floor over to you, Professor Mayring.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the friendly introduction. Well,
that's perfect.
Some clicks.
Some clicks, yeah.
Some clicks, and we are here at my first PowerPoint. Well, what I want to do is to say something about the background of qualitative analysis, and then the greater part of this webinar to demonstrate you our new software for qualitative content analysis, which is, in my view, the first time an interactive program within CAQDAS. First, we have to frame qualitative content analysis within other approaches to text analysis, to qualitative-oriented text analysis. I've only put it some of those approaches. I, as a psychologist, I'm thinking to psychoanalytical analytic text interpretation. What they do is to come to the deep structures of the text. They want to know the suppressed impulses of the subject. They are looking for breaks within the text. That's one approach. Objective hermeneutics, maybe you are familiar with that, coming from sociology, Ulrich Oevermann. They try to come to the underlying social structures behind the subject. Not the subject is in the focus, but the social structure. Another approach. Discourse analysis tries to embed the text in discourses in society. Often used within cultural studies. Grounded theory, you all are familiar with that. It's an explorative approach. They try to come to theory building through codes and code networks, and try to build up a grounded theory from the text. What does qualitative content analysis? Well, they are category driven. They are rule guided. It is an interpretation, but very strong rule guided interpretation. It's more descriptive. Qualitative content analysis wants, by using categories, describe the text and the distribution of the categories. And by this, it's even possible to work with big text corpora, hundreds or thousands of pages. So this is the approach of content analysis. And I want to say that there are other approaches. And you have to choose the approach which is appropriate to your research question and to your material. What is, there is a long tradition of content analysis, of qualitative content analysis in Germany. I mentioned Siegfried Krakauer, Jürgen Ritzert. We started our work 40 years ago. Udo Kuckertz, maybe you know him by his software program Max QDA. Margit Schreier, well, and I have put it together in an English-speaking, English language book in Sage publisher, so you can have a look at the backgrounds of all what I'm saying now. What is content analysis? It's just mentioned a systematic analysis. It's not holistic. It's analyzes unit per unit, step by step. That's another approach than a holistic interpretation of a text. It analyzes fixed communication material, not only content. This is a problem in the title of in the term content analysis. Even formal aspects or other aspects are possible to aim with content analysis. It always refers to categories or systems of categories that are short formulations of aspects of the meaning of the text, which are always put it beside the text. You can always see that it's content analysis if you have a text, underlines some lines, and a category at the side of the text. And last point, it has clear rules of assignment of categories to text passages. Well, it comes from quantitative content analysis developed in the first half of the last century within communication sciences, working with huge text corpora. And the techniques are most of all frequency analysis. They count words, nouns, central terms, formal text attributes, and text mining is a modern approach working with big text corpora. Always within frequency analysis. There are within quantitative content analysis complex frequency analysis using an indicator model. They define aspects of the text, categories of the text as indicators of a variable behind those indicators. And they can link categories with each other, contingency analysis, associations, correlations, clusters, and things like that of certain categories. We don't want to do this. We criticize quantitative content analysis, most of all because the meaning problems, ambiguities within using a language. It has a weak linguistic foundation. You have to read between the lines. You have to interpret the texts. Jürgen has put it in 4 concepts of qualitative content analysis, or points of qualitative content analysis. First, look at the context of words. Second, look at the latent meaning, not only the overt content of the text. Third, look not only for frequencies, but as well for singularities. And fourth, also for absence of some aspects within the text. And last point, there's the problem of category definition. You have within quantitative content analysis, you have to choose categories. And as Krippendorf has described it, it's often labeled as an art to come to your categories. That's not very systematic. What are the basics for qualitative content analysis? Well, we try to maintain the procedure, the content analytical procedures without early quantifications. To maintain, for example, the content analytical units. It remains a systematic ongoing, and the systematic is theory and rule oriented. And the central point for our approach to qualitative content analysis, that there is a theoretical basis for the central procedures. We have found it within psychology of text processing, within categorization theories in psychology, and within psycholinguistics. So the rules are not arbitrary; they are theoretically based. That's very important for our approach. The categories are central in the text, as I've just mentioned. We have those content analytical units, and there are 3 important units. I will show it within the software afterwards. The coding unit as the smallest part of text, which can fall under a category. The recording unit and the context unit. I will explain it afterwards. It's a step-by-step model. And the basic procedure is always assignment of categories to text as a rule-guided interpretation. Afterwards, you could do frequency analysis. You must not, but you could do frequency analysis of category assignments. And the last point is that we would like to have some checks of intra-coder and inter-coder agreement. Intra-coder agreement, a very simple method to go through your material a second time. And starting a second time with the beginning and looking if you are coming to the same results, or if you have changed your procedures of coding the material. Inter-coder agreement, of course, is a second person. We do not use it, as I will show it afterwards, in a statistical sense, percentage of overlap or something like that, but as a rating. Is it similar? Is it very similar? Or is it sufficient agreement or not so sufficient agreement? But there has to be some of those, there have to be some of those checks. Oh. Well, we have developed a lot of 10 different procedures of qualitative content analysis. Summarizing is one of those procedures. Here we paraphrase all formulation and step by step bring macro operators of text reduction to those paraphrases and summarizing the text. I won't go to it here at this point. Inductive category development, I want to present it afterwards to you. There is a clear selection criterion and a fixed abstraction level for the inductive categories which we want to develop from the text. Explication is another technique, a stepwise definition and widening the context. I will not go into it, but what I want to show to you is deductive category assignment, and there are two possibilities. Nominal categories, only a set of categories brought to the text, or ordinal categories, which the categories are in an ordered, I will show it afterwards. And of course, there are possibilities to mix those procedures. We have described 4 possibilities for mixing. Theme analysis is one, type analysis is a second, deductive inductive procedures a third, and parallel procedures a fourth. Possibilities to mix those techniques. Okay, so you have a little bit an impression what qualitative content analysis wants. Now I want to show you a text, and we try to see if we can find something out by qualitative content analysis. It comes from an interview, 1 page of an interview. It's an evaluation study of within adult education, and the topic is a seminar, a professional seminar, and the interview asked at the end of the seminar, how was the seminar? How would you evaluate the seminar? Asked the sample of people which are within this study. You could do it quantitatively if you present a scale, let's say a 5-point scale, like in Austrian schools, give a grade to the seminar from 1 to 5. 1 is the best, 5 is the worst. We do that in our university courses every year. And what we see is every year the students make the grading 2. If you have made a very bad lecture, it's 2.4. If you made it very good, it's 1.6. It's always a positive bias in those quantitative ratings. If you're asking about life satisfaction on a 10-point scale, you always get 7 at the positive end as the magic point. People don't want to evaluate something too bad, but not only, but as well not totally good. So they come to that. That does not help me something if I want to evaluate this course. So I have to ask the people, how was the seminar? This is the qualitative approach. And I will let us read it together. What was one of those interviews? What did he say? So the question is, so how was the seminar for you? He said, yes, all in all, it was very good. What did you enjoy? Well, the instructor tries her best. And she was very kind. Okay, she doesn't seem to be very familiar with the field I am working in. And people in the course had very different backgrounds. In one session, she was totally off target when she completely misunderstood what F was asking. But then again, it was at the end of the session and we had no more time to discuss it. That happens. What would you say was your benefit from the seminar? Well, it gave me the opportunity to really delve into the topic. That was what I had intended for a long time. And the recommended literature was very interesting in parts, even if I was familiar with many of the references. And there were some very interesting people in the course with whom I want to remain in contact. Some things in the seminar not so good. Okay, the coffee was lousy, but you should be above that. Other than that, the instructor was a little bit taken by herself, thinking that she is the absolute expert. But maybe that occurs to me because I'm working in the field a longer time than she. However, I got some important stimuli for my job. Well, I don't much like those group dynamic exercises which she introduced. But well, perhaps that's the only way to integrate shy people into the group. Other critical points with the seminar. Well, in general, it was okay. It was not the first time for me to visit courses like that. And compared with them, it was very good. Maybe a less rigid leadership would be better and a more pronounced participant orientation. But a course like this is important for everyone in the field, and I'm grateful about this seminar. So that's what we got with this damned qualitative approach. Think a little bit. What is your impression if you have to give a grade on a scale of seminar satisfaction? It's not easy. That's the first point. It's not easy because there are ambivalent text passages, and there are indicators in the one. Well, he says it was good at the beginning, at the end it was okay, but he talked about very severe problems with the instructor. So it's not easy, first point. Second point, you need a technique. You need a technique to analyze this. You could take my colleague here in Klagenfurt, my psychoanalytical colleague, would go with his point of view to the text, and he would look for breaks and Freudian slips. And indeed, there is a slip introduced, and he would say he is very unsatisfied. He has very great problems with the instructor, and goes out of that course with a very, very bad feeling, even if he says at the end it was okay, and at the beginning it was very good. We don't have this focus. We try to do something with qualitative content analysis. What could we do with it? I want to show you two possibilities. One is inductive category formation. I said at the beginning, qualitative content analysis has a little bit descriptive focus, not explorative focus, descriptive focus. It wants to describe what happens in the text, what is mentioned in the text. So we could use the technique of inductive category formation, collecting positive and negative aspects of the seminar from the participant's perspective. One possibility. Another possibility would be to work with deductive category assignment. We want a rating of the whole text within an ordinal scale, ordinal seminar satisfaction scale, and we want to give one rating for this person. Is he very satisfied, rather satisfied, neutral, rather dissatisfied, very dissatisfied? Those are 5 categories, and I have formulated them before coming to the text. So this is a deductive strategy. Those positive and negative aspects, I don't know what they are. I don't have a list before. I want to look at the text. So it's an inductive process. Even if deductive and inductive is not looking at theory of science, not precisely possible to find a demarcation. But the main focus is more inductive oriented or more deductive oriented. Okay, and we want to do it with the software. It is an open access software. You find it at this website. It's in my site, the first interactive CAQDAS leading step by step through qualitative content analysis. It's web-based, so it's always in the newest version. You don't need to download a new version of the program. The disadvantage is that the data are not at your computer, but in the cloud. So you need a strong data protection, and we have it. We, at the moment, are more than 40,000 projects working with our software, and have no problems with data protection. There's a German and an English version of the program. You can switch between them, and there is background material about the team, the tutorials, introduction, workshops, references, projects, news, and so on this site. So that's the moment I try to start. Can you see my?
Yes, yes, we can.
Wonderful,
perfect.
Wonderful. This is this is the introduction to the software. You have infos and news and and the homepage. You need only an email address, and then the program sends you the possibilities to start the program. I try to start it, and it always begins with an overview about the projects I have just made. Here is one project. I want to create a new project. I need a title. and I can describe it and create a project. And of course, I have to put in the text. And here I have uploaded the seminar satisfaction interview number X. Well, text and project always is necessary for our procedures, a precise research question. We do not have a holistic view at the whole material and saying, well, I read it through and give my impressions of the person. No, I want a clear research question. And we've just formulated them before. I come to a new research question. And the research question is what positive aspects of the seminar are told. The content analytical technique is inductive category formation. I have to choose it. I have to decide for one technique. If I have decided for it, I get the step model and the rules for it. And here you see a very clear step-by-step model and rules for the procedures. You have to start with a research question. You have to establish a selection criteria, category definition, and level of abstraction. I cannot go deeper into it. You will see how it works. You're working through the material line by line, and you are formulating categories, and you can make a subsumption of a new text passage to an old category or formulate a new category. And very important in our procedures, there is a revision of the categories and rules after 10 to 50% of the material. Have a look, are the category definitions and level of abstraction, are they okay? Can you work with it? If you do some revisions, you have to rework the material, of course. Okay. If we have decided for inductive category formation, then we have to decide for the other important steps in content analysis, the content analytical units. The coding units here, you can find the definition, the smallest component of material which can be coded, the sensibility. My psychoanalytical colleague would put here the slightest hints as well from non-verbal annotations. No, I would prefer clear meaning components in the text as sensibility. The context unit means the background for each coding. If the person in the interview says something, can I look up at another page? Well, I would say only within his interview or her interview, not in others. So it's the whole case material. Perhaps there are other descriptions of the person from the interviewer that could be put here into this. And the third unit is the recording unit. The text portion confronted with the category system. And this is fixed here. It's always all documents within inductive category formation. I won't go into count multiple codings. But for inductive processes, it's very important to set up a definition of a selection criteria and a level of abstraction. Well, even if it's a little bit trivial, you have to define what are positive aspects. All positive aspects, then I'm thinking, well, not I would say all relevant. Maybe there's something which in the side of the interviewee is not relevant. He mentioned it, but not relevant, like the coffee. He says, no, it's not relevant. So we define all relevant positive aspects of the seminar in the view of the person, well, perhaps concerning content and circumstances. Make it as precise as possible. Abstraction level. How concrete or how general should we do our coding? If he says the coffee is bad, would we formulate circumstances at a more general level, or nutrition or coffee at a most concrete level? I would say as concrete as possible. But then if he says the instructor did not understand F, or if it's a really personal thing, that would not help me, because I want to do this analysis of inductive categories over several interviews. So I have to define, but not idiosyncratic. We would call it if it's only describing the person. It's a little bit general, but as concrete as possible within this. Now we can start coding. Before we couldn't start coding. This is the interactive process. This link was not enabled. Only now we could start coding. But we have, in the inductive way, to formulate a second question that was the negative aspects of the course. And again, it's inductive category formation, and we make our here we could say all relevant negative aspects. Point. The level concrete, no, but not idiosyncratic. So we have two research questions. We start coding. And here you find what you would find within other programs as well. You have the interview, and you could underline something and code it with a category. But you have here at the left side your research question, your content analytical technique, and the definition. And you can always look up what are your units, what are your criteria for coding. And that's important for analysis. We go through it. Well, all in all, it was very good. But it's not a factor. It's not a positive aspect. It's good. It's only a general evaluation. I cannot code it. What did you enjoy? Now is coming something concrete. The instructor tried her best. This could be a category. Instructor, I would say very engaged. And this is a category, and here you see, and the list of categories has its first point. She was very kind is a new aspect, a new category. Friendly instructor. And then I'm going, people in the course, okay, she doesn't seem very familiar with the field. That's a negative point. So I have to change for the negative aspects and right, and give this a name, instructor not familiar. Now, not familiar. Now I formulate not with the things I'm working with, but with all participants' backgrounds. This would be the abstraction level which we have chosen before. At different backgrounds, this is no evaluation, no positive, only a description of the course. In one session, she was totally off target and completely misunderstood what a person was misunderstanding participants' questions. So, looking at the watch, I cannot show you all of those. If you try it at home, you will find 6 positive and 6 negative aspects within this. If we have done it, we have to finish coding, and then we can go to analysis. And analysis means that I can formulate main categories. I can formulate a topic, a sub main category, and well, and then I can have outputs. Most interesting is the category statistics. I hope you can see this Excel file.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Perfect. And here you get a list of all categories. And here the absolute count of the categories, the percentage of all categorizations, and the percentage of all documents. Only interesting if you have plenty of texts within this. So this is one possibilities. The other possibility is to get the other possibility is to get the document statistic. Here it is, and this is a rectangular table of documents and categories, which you can analyze quantitatively. If you made plenty of interviews, then you have a big table, and you can look for chi-square tests if the male participants rated other positive aspects than the female, or something like that. Okay, only a short look to the deductive possibility. The question of the deductive is now how satisfied is the person. For me, it's always important to get this interrogation mark for a real research question, not an open theme or something like that. That's a deductive technique, and again, you have step models and rules. The coding, coding unit is maybe the same, and the context unit as well. The person, all information about the person. I want to have one rating for one person. And the recording unit is now every document. If I would have made several interviews, all interview gets its own rating on this scale. And here is now a very different procedure. We have to construct a coding guideline. We have to define those categories. We have here the first category, very satisfied. A definition could be how could we high satisfaction. Yes. The anchor example would be in the process of coding. You will find in the material very interesting text passages, and you will give them as example for this definition. Yeah, I have to be more precise. No negative aspects. Okay, I will leave out the coding rules. The coding rules define the difference between one category and the other category. We can leave it open at the moment, and add a new category. It's now something like rather satisfied, and we have to define it. Mostly positive. And now we have to define what is the difference between very satisfied and rather satisfied. Evaluation. And we can, and this happens within the pilot phase, that you are working with your coding guideline, giving definitions, examples, and coding rules for the differences between the categories. No severe negative aspect, but positive and negative factors. And maybe we can say overall evaluation positive, something like that. And going category by category, we make up this coding guideline, and after that we are going to the text, and here we find it was very good. What is it? It is very satisfying. We only get the categories we have predefined. It's not inductive. We can code it as very good. And then, okay, she doesn't seem to be familiar. There are negative points. We have to change it. We have to change it to rather satisfied, because there are negative points. And now I have to decide what is the dominant rating, and I would say the rather satisfied is the dominant rating. So I keep it this link, and now both passages are rather satisfied. And after that, the same comes up with the other text passages. Well, we are at the end. I couldn't show you the very interesting coder agreements, the intra-coder agreement and intercoder agreement would work like this. You yourself or a second person gets the text and can code, and at the end you have the text, and at the right side the coding of coder 1, at the left side coder 2, and you give up a rating if the codings are similar or comparable or something like that. So, well, this is what I wanted to show to you.
Thank you so very much, Professor Mayring. That was incredibly useful and engaging presentation. It struck me that you gave us a really nice balance between the methodological and the practical. So thank you very much for that. I thought it was particularly interesting to see, in comparison to other CAQDAS packages, that you can't start coding in QCAmap without having thought through and determined the parameters, the rules, as you call them. And that's something, you're right, that is not common in this genre of software. So I'd be very interested to hear from participants at the webinar today, their reflections on that, if anybody wants to say anything in the chat about that. There are a couple of questions. I've got a few questions myself, but there's a couple coming through from the chat that I'll start with. So first of all, Stephen has said that they would find it difficult to keep to one abstraction level at the initial stages. So if they're clear what they're looking for, then they might still encounter materials that could be categorized at different levels. And the sense is that initially they'd want to capture all of them. So the question is it possible to recategorize the material into more consistent abstraction levels later?
Of course, if I can answer, of course it's possible, and especially in this round of pilot phase, you have to establish the abstraction level, but it is necessary to formulate an abstraction level if you don't want to have two different things in your. At the end is a list of categories, and this list has to be in some way at the same level, consistent, and the list represents a description what is coming up within the intervals, a list of positive aspects. And if someone says the whole seminar was positive, this does not help you. You want to know concrete positive factors or concrete negative sectors. And of course, you could do a new going through the material with a more concrete or more general level, of course. and it's very simple.
Okay, I think that, thank you for that clarification. I think there was a follow-up question to that from Stephen about the hierarchical nature of the category system. Can you create a hierarchical category system, or is everything flat?
No. This is the possibility within the inductive categories. I have the possibility to formulate main categories. So I have 2 levels of hierarchy. If you want to have more than those 2s, you have to do it outside the program. You have the list of categories and the main categories, and maybe you put them into 2 groups on a 3rd level. That would be no problem. But the system works with 2 levels of hierarchy. And of course, the frequency tables, if you formulated main categories, will analyze this as well at the general level and at the concrete level.
Okay, thank you. I think I've got a follow-up or a related question. So at the beginning, when you're setting up a project, you've got to make that initial decision between the analytic techniques, haven't you? I wondered if you could provide a little bit of advice about how to know what the appropriate choice would be. How do I know which one I should start with? Are there any guidelines around that?
My first guideline is try to formulate your research question in a sentence with a question mark. And then it's clear. If it's very open, you need a more inductive way to come to interesting results. If you have like the question, how strong is the satisfaction? I have just formulated the main category, satisfaction. How were the feelings? Well, this could be open. So I would need a more inductive procedure, because I don't know which feelings occur within the material. That depends if in the research question there is a variable or a construct which can be the initial point for a deductive system.
And is it common that people using QCAmap will do both a deductive and an inductive, and one following the other? Is that the common thing to do?
And the main, I've said we can work through big text corpora. So if we have interviews with 30 people, we can end up with 1,000 pages. We will make only one work through the material and have, for example, 3, 4, 5 inductive research questions and 2 or 3 deductive questions. We always switch between them. If the material gives information to another research question, then we will switch to this and give the coding to that. And so it's very easy. Well, our world record is 20,000 pages in one project. Interview transcripts.
That's a lot, yeah. And can you see them layered on top on the same transcript, the inductive codes?
Yes.
Perfect. There's a couple more questions coming through in the chat as we're speaking. So Brigitte asks, does the software allow the production of graphical displays and visualizations?
Of what?
Graphical displays, so images, maybe maps or some kind of visualization, not just the numbers.
It allows the input of pictures, and then you can code. You can mark parts of the picture, and code them.
And what about the results of the coding, Philipp? Can you get graphical images of those, or is it just frequency information and the actual coded segments?
The results are in those Excel tables, and with them you can further work and
excellent. That's clear. Thank you very much. There's one more question I'm just seeing. I haven't read this one, so I'm going to read this out as I go. Christine says, it's been a very interesting and useful presentation. Thank you. In response to my request for responses about the requirement for a lot of explicit decision making before beginning coding. Christine says they think this is really useful, especially for students new to QCA. For myself, I'm interested to give it a try and see how well it fits with my process. That's really great to hear. And actually, I had a question around the teaching. So as you know, I do a lot of teaching around methods and tools. And in that context, I'm very interested to think about how this tool could be used to teach methods. And I just wondered whether you yourself or any of your colleagues have used QCAmap as a methods teaching tool. So, teaching the method through the tool rather than separately, and whether you had any reflections on that. Discussions I've had with other people, some people think we should do methods teaching separately and then the tool, and other people like to do it together. I'd be very interested to hear on your reflections.
That's a very important point. And if you're looking into my book in Sage, we have the logic that not only the content analytical procedures have a step-by-step model, but as well the whole research project, the whole process has a research question. It has to define the material. It has to have procedures of data analysis and so on. And within the book, I made the logic of the a systematic research project and put it in the techniques of content analysis. I have to confess that's a little bit different to more open hermeneutical approaches. But I would say they often are working explorative. If you are working explorative, you can end up in different results with the same material. Explorative, but in a descriptive way, you need a more systematic way, and this is what qualitative content analysis can bring you.
Excellent, thank you so much. Stephen has also reflected on that point and says that they're a strong advocate for thinking about analysis in terms of research questions, which helps to decide what's likely to be relevant in the data. And it seems that there's a few of us who are thinking that this tool is one means by which to make that clear to ourselves as researchers as we go through the process. Many of us, I'm sure, come across many students and researchers who lose sight of that research question along the way. So really interesting to hear others' reflections on that. I'm afraid, Professor Mayring, we've come to the end of our time together. I've found it very interesting, very fascinating. There's lots of thanks coming through the chat. I just wanted to thank you once again and to remind everybody else that's here about our website and the following sessions coming up when we're back from the summer break in September. We have recorded this webinar and we will be making that available. You'll all get an email once it's available on our YouTube channel so that you can come back and revisit this discussion and the demonstration of the tool. So thank you once again, everybody, for being here, and particularly to Professor Mayring for this very useful session today.
Thank you.
So I will stop the recording. There's lots of thanks